Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll take a look at Chicago's fourth largest read newspaper, written and produced by college students. And we'll take a look behind the scenes at the theater department at Niagara University, founded and managed by Brother Augusta Toohey. Father Tom Legere will be along to talk about self-love, and Rosemary Bruno will join us with In the Know. Hello, I'm Isabel Galvery. Welcome to Reel to Reel. Good evening. It's good to be with you again. Father McGowan is on vacation, traveling through Europe in preparation for the Reel to Reel European trip next spring. He'll be back with us in a few weeks with the details of his trip and a preview of what you, our viewers, can expect. But more about that later. Up first tonight, we have the story of a newspaper in Chicago that's garnering a lot of attention lately. It's called New Expressions, and what sets it apart from other newspapers is its independence. It's written and produced entirely by college students.
That's what this is a community. There are some young people here that are very good at selling. And they'd go crazy if they were asked to write stories, although once in a while they'll fill in, and vice versa. And the people who like to do the bookkeeping and send out bills, and those who love to put all the data into the computers so that the surveys can be done for the reporters. It's letting young people come and find their niche, and then they all see that this is a finished effort and it gets out, and they identify with it. And there are all kinds of things like this that could exist in a community.
This community lives in a rented newsroom in the Chicago Loop, and the niche that these teenagers have found for themselves is the writing, editing, and managing of a newspaper. Working after school hours, they publish the monthly New Expression. Founded and run by Sister Ann Heinz, it is the fourth largest news sheet in Chicago. New Expression boasts several things: a readership of 120,000, journalistic scoops over that city's dailies, the Chicago Sun-Times and the Chicago Tribune, and graduates who have used this experience to springboard their careers into the media. The tabloid is free to its readers, so where does the money come from? About 1/3 of it from student-generated advertising, and the rest from donations and foundations. They come from all over Chicago, and 90% of them are minorities. Trained in how to publish a newspaper by adult professionals, the work and the finished product belongs to them. Former managing editor Robin Florzak.
Well, you start out, you go through the workshop, and they teach you the basics of editing.
When can you put your own opinion into your reporting? Never, really, basically, as far as you know it now. You don't. You just don't do it. I mean, as you grow and write for national magazines, some of which are it's expected that you come from a particular point of view, from a particular philosophy, then you may do that. But right now, the answer is never. You simply don't.
So you learn the basics of editing. And then if you're interested, you can go into being a full-time writer during the year or go for an editorship. It's a good experience because Ann will sit down with you and go over your story just like a real editor would.
Sitting down with Ann to discuss or defend a story is also known as sitting in the hot seat. Former New Expression editor Colleen Robinson.
The first time I showed a story to Ann, I started crying because she was like, rip it up. And, and most of the time when you cry, I was like 14 years old, people were like, okay, it'll be okay. And she was like looking at me like, what do you want me to do because you're crying? And that experience and others really helped me, to grow as a person.
And did you feel that you made any difference? Were you rewarded somehow in what you did with regard to reacting to the women's some justice issues for women?
Was I rewarded?
Well, did you felt like the effort you put in or the things you had to say were worth something?
I felt that what I was saying was worth something.
And who were you saying it to?
Anybody who would listen.
Too often, a lot of the high school newspapers are edited by the administration, so you never get anything but like prom news or never any hard news, any issues that are concerned with teens because it's just too controversial and they don't want parents calling up or something. But down here, you can do stories on that. We've done stories on incest, prostitution, And then some good things too, some things that teens are involved with that are good. The teens run it. It isn't run by an administrator who decides what can and can't be published. If the teens want to do a story about a certain subject, say lyrics in rock and roll, then they can do a story about that and not have to worry that they're going to be edited or censored.
We want a label on recordings that tell when a record has either sex, profanity, violence, or vulgarity. And we think that by having that label on there, then parents will be able to determine what kinds of material their children are bringing into their home.
Okay. Then how do you propose that the record industry do this? That's a lot of time and a lot of money, and that's a business, and they're in it to sell. And that's
but they already do it to some extent themselves. They already provide information to radio stations, for instance, about recordings that might not be appropriate for airplay. There are many, especially on comedy albums, companies will put a sticker on it. So they're already doing this, and all we're suggesting is that they extend what they're doing internally and for the broadcast industry to consumers, so the consumers will have the same consideration.
Well, the FCC has already put certain standards on songs that can't be played on the air. Why do you want them to go more like a step further that might not be necessary?
But airplay is different than what children...
The driving force behind New Expression is Sister Ann Heinz. She began her professional career as a high school journalism teacher. But the idea to start an independent student newspaper took flight after she completed a study on high school journalism.
That convinced me of two things. One was that minority students had very little access to any decent kinds of programs in journalism and in particular in print media, but also certainly in terms of broadcast media as well. And my own experience had taught me that that's the point at which you turn people, you tend to light fires in people when they're in high school about professions. And then the second thing we found out in that study was that the vast majority of content in the school papers that was in any way nationally oriented to anything that was controversial was being censored out of the paper. So the things that were most vital to them were not even being printed, were not even being written about. Or if they were written about, what was even worse, that they were being trampled on by adults.
New Expression has handled some tough problems in their 8 years, like cocaine use in high school, discrimination, contraceptives, and was the first to break with the story on a teenage prostitution ring.
To me, that's as good a way to get at some issues of justice as it would be for me to be in a religion class, let's say, and dealing with it in this way. We're reaching 120,000. The first managing editor was a Puerto Rican boy from the near West Side, and he's now a reporter with the Dallas Times. Second managing editor is now assistant editor of a magazine called Shop Talk. So a sizable percentage of them have gone on into journalism, and now the first groups are really getting into professional jobs, and it's very interesting to watch.
New Expression sparked the creation of a nationwide communication network last year called Youth News Service.
We began to say you could have a bureau in a city that would not be nearly as demanding an operation as actually printing and circulating a newspaper. So there is now a bureau in Cleveland, there's a bureau in Los Angeles, and that works. And so we are transmitting stories to Washington, and some young people in Washington are covering Capitol Hill for the service, and then we're receiving it just as we would if we were a member of the Associated Press or United Press International. Increasingly now, daily newspapers are accepting the service.
In addition to providing a valuable service to the youth of Chicago, each person who works on New Expression comes away changed from that experience.
When I went on into college, just having that background, it helped me get scholarships and to get interviews that maybe other people wouldn't get because I had journalism experience in high school.
When you have an opinion, you have to know why you have it. You have to know how to support your opinions. So I think it really helps people.
It's really a reward to see that paper come out each time, see the reaction to it.
We're going to take a short break, but coming up we have two of our regulars. Father Tom Legere will join us to discuss the problems and values of self-love, and Rosemary Bruno will be along to keep us up to date on current events within the know. So stay with us.
Because you love your family, now is the time to consider the financial advantages of a Donahue pre-arranged funeral. The caring, sensitive people of the Donahue Funeral Home invite you to discuss with them in the privacy of your home the many advantages of an inflation-protected Donahue pre-arranged funeral. With pre-arrangement, you can fix the cost of a funeral at today's prices permanently and gain peace of mind for yourself and your family. And that's what living is all about.
It's said that before a person can love others, he must first learn to love himself. And learning to love oneself can have advantages and disadvantages. Here's Father Tom Legere to talk about the rewards and potential dangers of self-love.
Greetings in the Lord. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the spiritual journey has to do with the role of self-love. When we hear that term, we almost invariably think of self-indulgence. But nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, a firm love of self is part of the basis of our own spiritual life. We have been created as little less than the angels. We are God's children. We have a right to be here. And so learning to accept ourselves is not something that is against God's plan, but it is very much a part of His plan. The only difficulty comes when we try to see ourselves as the center of the universe, when we get our own little egos in the way and think that we are the only one that exists. But when we see ourselves as a part of other people and a part of nature and a part of God, then it all fits in and it makes sense. And once that is the case, then we need to learn to be good to ourselves. I know often when I'm speaking with people, I'll say to them, be good to yourself. And I almost invariably get a surprised look. They're not used to seeing that kind of a reaction from people, especially somebody who's a priest. But if we're not good to ourselves, then we have nothing to give anybody else. We look at the example of Jesus, and we ask ourselves, was He good to Himself? Absolutely. Jesus, even though He was very involved in His mission, always took time to rest. He took time to pray. He took time to spend with His friends. And in doing so, He gave us permission to be good to ourselves, to meet our own basic needs without feeling guilty about it. We need to learn to accept the fact that we have needs that have been given to us by God, and to learn to accept and integrate and celebrate those needs is very much a part of God's plan for us. And so let us then learn to be good to ourselves, to stop and smell the roses, and to come to appreciate this beautiful gift of life for what it really is.
As always, transcripts and videotapes of Father Tom's message are available by writing or calling us here at Reel to Reel. Grab a paper and pencil and we'll have an address and phone number for you at the end of the show. But right now, let's join Rosemary Bruno with In the Know.
Thank you, Belle, and good evening. The National Conference of Catholic Bishops overwhelmingly approved a pastoral letter on campus ministry at the annual United States Catholic Conference meeting held earlier this month. Approximately 300 bishops gathered in Washington, D.C. to discuss an unusually wide-ranging agenda. Among the more important results, the bishops issued a statement on behalf of family-owned farms, urging Congress to pass a farm bill. The bishops formed an ad hoc committee to monitor United States defense activity as a follow-up to their 1983 peace pastoral, and progress was made on the second draft of the pastoral on the economy. Philadelphia's John Cardinal Kroll received national attention during the NCCB meeting when he gave Catholic Relief Services a clean bill of health. The Cardinal had been asked to investigate allegations that monies were being misspent. After making recommendations that the CRS develop a clear mission statement as well as more specific personnel policies, he declared that Catholic Relief Services is using its donations both wisely and well in Ethiopia. He underscored the ongoing need for donations and expressed a hope that donors would continue responding generously. The students at Pope Pius X High School have successfully completed another Thanksgiving food drive. For more than a dozen years now, homerooms have collected foodstuffs to be distributed in the Pottstown area and beyond. Father John Scarcia, director of school ministry at Pius X and coordinator of the Thanksgiving food drive, commented on the context in which the drive is held.
The idea of service is intertwined in our entire religion program. What we try and do is to make it important for the students to see service as part of their religious education program. So therefore, we have two major service projects a year. One in the first semester, which is the Thanksgiving food drive, and one in the second semester, which is called our special field day.
The baskets of food were blessed at a special Thanksgiving liturgy before being distributed to families, area churches, and organizations, as well as to the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. The Committee on Pastoral Concerns of Persons with Disabilities is seeking actively involved lectors, cantors, ushers, and other parish ministers who are also disabled. According to Mrs. Dorothy Pettit, the committee is in the process of assessing the status of involvement by the handicapped. The committee was established 3 years ago following a diocesan-sponsored workshop on the disabled. And finally, Pope John Paul II has announced plans for yet another trip outside of Italy. The Holy Father will make his first pilgrimage to India in February, visiting 14 cities in 10 days. It will be the 29th trip of his papacy. Well, that's the news for In the Know. I'm Rosemary Bruno.
We're going to take another short break, but coming up, we'll have a look behind the scenes at Niagara University's theater department, run by Brother Augusta Toohey. So stay with us.
Next spring, you can be a part of it. The 1986 Reel-to-Reel Tour of Europe. 2 weeks through Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Liechtenstein, and Italy. Hosted by Father Dave McGowan. Mark your calendars for next spring and watch Reel-to-Reel for more details. And be a part of it.
Many people find retirement isn't as much fun as they thought it would be. Too much time on their hands, too little to do. The Retired Senior Volunteer Program has thousands of opportunities for retired executives, housewives, engineers, teachers, whatever your skills or schedule. RSVP has something to fit anyone's interests. You've learned a lot in your life. Share the experience of a lifetime.
He began by writing poetry in grade school, grew to writing plays in high school, and appeared in summer stock while in college. His name is Brother Augusta Toohey, and he is the founder of the theater department at Niagara University in New York, a program that in the past 20 years has grown in size and reputation.
Okay, gentlemen, what we have here is basically a monologue, but really think of it as a duologue. What's happened to you as you become more and more ill, you're almost out of it.
Every day I live in wonder at the fact that I'm privileged to create. And I think a lot of people don't have that privilege, or if somehow they have it, they don't take advantage of it, and that to me is a crime. That's nearly sinful.
I'm having a hard time of it. Did you guess?
Brother Augustine Toohey has spent almost his entire life taking advantage of his privilege to create. He is the founder and director of the Theater Studies program at Niagara University, where he spent the last 20 years. He's a poet who's had his verse published and who is currently working on a first book of poetry. He is a playwright whose work has been seen at universities, religious conferences, and on television. And he is a theatrical director whose shows range from major professional productions to children's theater.
And they cut slice too. The village boss, they all...
A member of the Vincentian order, Brother Augustine believes his talents in literature and theater are a means of expressing the spirit of the gospel.
Everything participates in the incarnation, and the incarnation has to do with perfectibility to me, doing the best that one possibly can, whatever it is. Producing is a tremendous aspect of my religious life for me, that is creating something. And in that sense, it participates in the incarnation. And I think it's a tremendous gift which one is given and has a tremendous responsibility to. Dearest, my maker of inconsequential miracles, gracious, ingenuous sovereign of small talk, could you spare me some moments of exclamation? Some afternoon, perhaps, write me a second act.
Poetry is one way Brother Augustine expresses his spiritual feelings. Some of his most recent works are addressed to Christ and are called the Dearest Poems.
The necessities of life, dearest. I think of them this morning, standing on the campus lawn early in the first snow, and ponder life without embellishment, like a poem without metaphor. The lawn seems stretched by the snow.
A nearby state park devoted to the arts is the scene for another of Brother Augustine's projects.
Then Bap the baker leaped to his feet and cried,
"What do wasps like best to eat? Strawberry jam!" No. Now, wait just a minute. If we made
The Art Park Repertory Theater is directed by Brother Augustine. 7 of his university students make up this semi-professional troupe.
This is its 10th year, and it's very, very popular. It's children's theater. It's a different kind of children's theater. We have our own style, our own way of doing. Very simple, very direct, and lots of fun, we think. And the little ones love it, and some of the big ones love it, too.
When they were done, the dough was left to rise. To the loaf was a mountain in shape and size. They hitched it up with a bit of fuss to tractors, cars, and a village bus. Then they drove it to the...
After the show, Brother Augustine spends time with his students to critique their performance.
Good show. That was a good show. Enjoyed it very much. A couple of things. Watch the pace of the stories, okay? As you get to know them.
Brother Augustine enjoys close relationships with his students. He is concerned with their growth, not only as actors, but as people. He strives to educate and build character.
What the world does not need is another dumb actor. The great satisfaction is to watch a student go from being a totally bottled up, self-centered, arrogant, which a lot of theater people unfortunately are, and some claim they have to be, to go from that to understanding the way in which he must, to be a performer, you must be as generous as anyone in the world.
Brother Augustine's experience with the personal growth of his students was the inspiration for The Guardian, an hour-long mime drama he wrote for NBC television. The play features 10 of his former students rehearsing a performance of The Passion. The plot deals with their relationship to the theater's custodian, the Guardian, who represents Christ. Rejected at first, the Guardian eventually finds acceptance among the actors, and in doing so, changes their lives.
He told me to pray for faith. It's not belief. I still believe. Can you believe in something without any love?
Another work that draws from Brother Augustine's personal experience is The Common Room.
Now, I kneel in a fog because every prayer seems to be pointless. I pray like a mute. I stumble in this cloud of not knowing what to pray for. I'm too young for a midlife crisis and too old for any causes but my own.
Everything you write comes out of very concrete experiences and very, as Henry James would say, very felt thoughts. Usually it has to do with people. It has to do with an experience of people. So at any rate, The Common Room came out of one of my most common experiences, which is my life with my confrères, my fellow priests and brothers. And it's a play about them, a kind of pièce à clé. It's thinly disguised Niagara University. And it talks about them as human beings, as priests, as people with tremendous spiritual dimensions, but also as human beings.
Were you ever in trouble? Or did you know from the beginning, straight through?
In this rehearsal, student actors play an old priest who's disillusioned and unresponsive, and a young priest undergoing a crisis of vocation.
I don't want to spend my life walking through my work like a robot priest. Did they burn out? These ghosts of priests I sometimes see around me? Because I don't feel anything anymore. Nothing. And I'm angry. I'm angry at me. Like I shot it all. Like I burned myself out or something.
For Brother Augustine, the creative aspects of life go beyond mere diversion and personal satisfaction.
It's something I cannot not do. I have to do it. It is a way of communicating for me. It's a way of expressing what I have experienced at the deepest level that one can experience things at.
As we mentioned earlier, Father McGowan is in Europe making plans for the European tour that Reel to Reel is sponsoring this spring. He'll be back in a few weeks with the details, but in the meantime, if you'd like more information, drop us a line and let us know that you're interested. Write to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103. That's Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103. Or call during business hours, 215-668-9842. And on our community bulletin board tonight, here's the latest update on Christmas bazaars in the Delaware Valley. St. Francis of Assisi Parish in Germantown has a bazaar scheduled for December 7th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Also on December 7th, St. Mary's Manor in Lansdale. Their bazaar will be held from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the auditorium. St. Eleanor's at 4th and Main in Collegeville will hold a coffee house on Saturday, December 7th at 8 p.m. The folk music concerts will be held in the school hall. LaSalle University will be holding 1-week, 3-credit courses from January 6th to 10th, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Courses include Developing the Whole Person, Spirituality, Sexuality, and Relationships, Ministry to the Aging, Issues and Challenges. Call 215-951-1350 for information. St. Carthage Church at Cobbs Creek Parkway and Cedar Avenue will present Handel's Messiah, performed by Philadelphia's Singing City Choir on Sunday, December 8th at 4 p.m. Admission is free. Local high schools will be holding scholarship examinations in December. These include Archbishop John Carroll High School, Saturday, December 14th, 8:30 a.m., and Malvern Preparatory School, Saturday, December 7th, 9:15 a.m. Next week on Reel to Reel, we'll celebrate the Feast of the Immaculate Conception with a look at the role the Blessed Mother plays in the Church today. And we'll take a special look at the mystery of the Shroud of Turin and speak to a local expert on the shroud, Dr. Joseph Gambesha. So join us again next week. Good night.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-565-7070.
For 12 years, I have been part of our priest prayer group. Now, our priest group hosts a monthly charismatic mass at Incarnation. I am Father John Shelley, and I am inviting you to be with us at Incarnation Parish this Thursday, December 5th at 7:30 p.m. Incarnation is on 5th Street, 4 blocks north of Roosevelt Boulevard. See you there.
Charity in Action is a heartwarming sight. In South Jersey, the House of Charity relieves hardship for thousands of men, women, and children. Through its agencies, retarded children receive special education. Medical treatment goes to the poor. Concerned workers care for the elderly. Young people are counseled on drug and alcohol abuse. And the physically handicapped receive training. Support the House of Charity in South Jersey and touch someone's life with love.